Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program The Journey Begins. Part 7. 7. Lucky for some, hopefully lucky for us after the shambles that was last time. We are here on the launch pad with our new launch vehicle, another new launch vehicle after the shuttle test of last time. This is the Brunel Mark 1, which hopefully should give us a bit of a heavier lifting options to get into space. Let's get her launched. Accelerating slowly skywards on just these 6 SRBs to start with. It's a larger vehicle, as I said, hopefully a bit more heavy lifting involved. We're testing an 18-ton payload for this mission. I've just stuck a fuel tank in there which weighs 18 tons, so that should give us more than enough lifting capability for our near future needs. The Brunel, of course, named after Isambard Kingdom Brunel, famous for railways and bridges and hospitals and Swindon, without making any value judgments on which of those is the more important. Yes, so a much bigger vehicle. You can see the sort of almost checkered pattern of the orbiter on here with a three-man crew capsule. So Valentina is joined by Bill and Bob for this one. So everybody finally gets to do some proper astronauting for once, which I'm sure is lovely for them. Anyway, we're coming to the end of the SRBs. We fire up our main engine, ditch those, and start to tilt gently over. Just gently to start with. I'm not sure how stable this thing is. Oh, wanting to go a little bit too far there. Let's fire this up all the way. Open the throttle right up. And I think we can just start to tilt ourselves over to that 45-degree angle that we're doing most of our burn in. There we go. Lovely. So, yes, anyway. So here we have the payload hidden behind the fairing, and then we have our little orbiter there with some solar panels, this time the extendable solar panels, unlike previous missions. Got the crew capsule there, we have the shielded docking port, and because we can't use that upper slot for parachutes, we got 3 of these radial mount parachutes. And that should hopefully bring us down nice and safely. How are we getting on? Apoapsis up to 40,000. Yeah, everything going well. So, yes. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, so this orbiter hopefully will be able to shunt around the payloads that we can take into space, and hopefully we'll also have enough delta V so if it needs to fly off to the moon, hopefully it can get into orbit of the moon with its delta V. Delta V a bit low now. Let's just check. Hang on. Yeah, I shut off the. I want to sort of keep that as just solid mass, so I've disabled the use of that fuel here. First stage is about to burn out. I can just start tilting us over. There it goes. So I can fire up that second stage. Get us tilted over to about 20 degrees, I think we need to do. And we'll just hold it here for a little while. Now it's a bit tricky where this isn't like a traditional vehicle like a shuttle that has a definite cargo bay attached. We are going to need to do a bit of hasty manoeuvring once we get into something vaguely approaching an orb. Well, not even approaching an orb. Once we get our apoaps well up out of the atmosphere, we sort of have to turn around, hook ourselves onto the payload, turn back around again, and yes, and then hopefully thrust to get to circularize our orbit. And well, fingers crossed. But yes, much more capable vehicle than our previous orbital vehicles. Just because it operates as sort of a large single unit rather than stages, it can just refuel and we can take it elsewhere. So hopefully a very versatile launch vehicle, very versatile orbital vehicle that will hopefully push our space program onwards and upwards. And there's some very important things I want to do for this very soon, but this is just going to be a simple test flight. Just keep that pointed at the horizon. There we go. This sort of intended to be somewhere between an Apollo and an Orion module, just to sort of in NASA terms. How's our apoapsis doing? We want to keep thrusting to 70. Our time to apoapsis is still decreasing. Just now increasing, so hopefully we just carry on like that. And we'll get up to about 80,000, and then we should have a bit of spare time to apoapsis in which to complete our manoeuvre, which has some added complications because of recent patching, but yeah, we will come to that later. And with these, well, with the camera angle just switching to indicate we've gone into orbit. Oh, I've overcooked it a little bit. That should be fine. How long we got? 10 minutes to the manoeuvre node. Right, let's get rid of our fairing. Let's decouple this node. Gonna need to turn on our RCS thrusters. Thrust to get ourselves away. We can also open that shield because we're going to need to use that. And then let's just flip ourselves around. So we're pointing towards our target. Lovely job. We will want to control from here. We want to set that as our target. So we want to make sure this is lined, sort of pointing in the same direction. Just tilt. What's going on here? Ah, I see what's going on. Sorry, just the sort of my axes are out of sync. I just need to, because that's the top of the module. So right, now we just need to bring it in for docking. I suppose I should arrest my backwards velocity for the moment, because we're going to need to go a bit forward, and then we're going to need to lift it up. We're quite nicely lined up. We don't need to do any side-to-side stuff. We're not coming in fast enough. Let's thrust forward. Of course, these docking maneuvers. Let's just try and get our prograde marker lined nicely up, because we're coming in a bit to the side. Yeah, that's a bit further. Bit faster forward. Yeah, recent patches have kind of nerfed these docking ports. So previously you just had to get pretty close and then the magnetic forces would take over and you just come in and you'd dock nicely after a bit of wobbling about, of course. But yeah, I think they've nerfed those fairly heavily in recent patches. We are coming in. Let's have a look at that. I think we're still coming in quite nicely. But the problem is now you have to get it pretty exact, otherwise just the magnets will take over, trying to bring you in for a dock. Oh, perfect. Let's turn off those RCS thrusters because those are going to get annoying. So first thing we want to do is ditch this. Thrust backwards to sort of pull our payload away. There we go. All is going very well indeed. I suppose I should thrust that way around because it's going to be the quicker way around. And still 7 minutes left to our apoapsis. Yeah. Well, that all worked like a charm, didn't it? Oop, overshot that. Maybe not quite like a charm, but you know, well, you can't have everything, can you? Yes, I've been playing around with docking ports recently since the nerf, and yeah, it's just a pain in the arse because, like previously, you have to get a lot closer. Let's ditch you now. And we can extend our solar panels. There we go. What was I saying? Yes, like last time, you're getting close, the magnets start to bring you in, but if you're not really precisely lined up, then it will just fling both spacecraft or sort of off to the side, which is incredibly annoying if you've got a, like I have now, a payload that doesn't have any guidance on it, because well, that just starts it spinning about and there's no way you can really ever hope to dock to it again. How are we coming in here? Right, for this one I'm not going to actually be too worried about circularizing this orbit exactly, because for this test flight, oh, those RCS thrusters don't half tick me off when they do that. Don't want to get too worried about. I haven't even enabled the engines. Let's get those enabled. Let's get ourselves thrusting. Yeah, everything looking good. Everything looking good for the new vehicle so far. But don't worry about getting in precisely circular orbit, because we are, as part of our test, we're going to get this up into orbit high above Kerbin. I think it's 240 or 250,000 meters. I'm going to go for a touch over 250,000 meters, circularize the orbit, and then deorbit. And hopefully, if that all works well, it means we have a pretty solid craft with a more than enough delta V to do some things. And this, as I said, was with an 18-ton payload, which we're not going to be using really anything nearly that much. That'll do. So a versatile craft, a thing that can shuttle about between missions, almost a space shuttle, although that sort of terminology is reserved for other things. A couple of pieces of space junk. They're going to orbit for quite a long time because their periapsis is pretty high, but not to worry. They'll deorbit eventually. I've got another piece of space junk over here, and a similar story for that. Right, coming up to our apoapsis. So let's go and circularize. Oh, I'm not even pointed even remotely the right way. So we are going to have to go and turn to get ourselves pointed prograde. I really hate it when the RCS thrusters do that. I'm just going to turn that off, because otherwise I'll be doing that forever. I've overshot the apoapsis slightly, so I'm going to turn off that. I'm going to thrust above the horizon. Hopefully bring the apoapsis back in front of me. Let's start thrusting a bit more aggressively. Let's bring that back down to our prograde marker. And we're doing beautifully. Stop thrusting for a second. To about there, I reckon. Yeah, that's circular enough. So, we can... How much fuel have we got remaining? Oh, we've got a ton of fuel remaining. I'm not sure if that's counting this. We can very easily check. Yeah, a ton of delta V in this. This launch vehicle will do very nicely. Will allow us to do all sorts of things to sort of get stuff into orbit without meaning to go into too many spoilers. Let's get this thing pointed retrograde. Just as we circularize the orbit, we're now going to just deorbit. As our test is complete, this vehicle will do everything we need it to do. So there's no need to stick around in orbit any longer. Let's turn those RCS thrusters off, and let's start getting ourselves down. Let's dip the periapsis down quite far. Just give this as tough a test as possible. It's not going to be too tough a test, just coming in from 250,000 meters, but hopefully, make sure there aren't many kinks we need to iron out. Where are we? 30,000, 20,000. Let's get down. Yeah, that'll do. So now we just time accelerate forwards 100 times. That will, of course, automatically dip down to 50 times once we get there. And now we need to ditch these various bits. No, we don't want to do that. We want to point normal. Let's fire up those RCS thrusters again. And turn them off when they start getting noisy. Right, so let's ditch you. Fire up those thrusters. Pull ourselves away. Give ourselves a good thrust away. And then... point ourselves... Oh, that drives me nuts, it really does. And then we can just... well, I suppose we should close this. And then we just stage that. And that sort of prevents ourselves from just the capsule being launched back into that payload there. So, all is well and good. Let's get ourselves pointed retrograde. And we are very nearly in the atmosphere, and that is a very successful flight. Yeah, such a relief after last time. That was such a pain. Let's get ourselves accelerating. Everybody looking happy there, particularly Valentina. Bill looking happy. Bob looking, well, slightly bemused, but, well, that's Bob for you. Bob's a scientist. Yeah, scientists are like that. They're all a bit weird. Where's our other pieces? They're flying forward. The service module not heating up much. This heating up a fair bit, actually. I think that is going to provide some fireworks very shortly. There it goes. Come on. Beautiful. Back to our re-entry capsule. Everything looking lovely. Just gonna scooch down the time acceleration just a touch, just as we come in here. Got to land on the land, not quite as forgiving as a landing on the sea, but well, we want to give this as rough a test as possible, just to make sure it can do all the things we need it to do. Just gonna scooch up the time acceleration there, and there we go. Let's do this. What have I got this set to? What's the deployment altitude on these? No, not you. 1000. I think if I remember correctly, three parachutes like this does decelerate you very rapidly. So I'm just going to try and get you down to 500. I think should do us. I hope I haven't overcooked that. Otherwise, this is going to be a very rough test. But no, there we go. Almost immediately down to a very, very reasonable speed, and we can just float gently down to the ground now. Mission accomplished. Job done. Now, just as we get close to the ground, let's just... And there we have it. Beautiful. So we've tested 2 new launch vehicles over these last 2 episodes, and that will allow us to push our space program on to much bigger and better things. So, well, I suppose we better get on with doing those bigger and better things, but then we'll have to wait for another day. So until then, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.